Something weird just happened. And that is that was entirely too loud for me because I have my ears in this week, and now my head is going thump 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 thump. Anyhow, welcome into Kyle and Jay's Q&A. I am producer Kyle, and see, I can't hear myself, Jay. Am I still blown out? Am I good? Do I need to turn my microphone up? Anyway, welcome into Kyle and Jay's Q&A, a show where the producers of the experience, me, Kyle, and him, Jay, who's in the background right now, talk to you about stuff. We can answer EXP questions, we can answer comic book questions, but we usually have some kind of topic, and this week's topic is, what is comics journalism? And it was actually inspired by a show that Jay and Sean did over on the Hydrasylum page. Shout out Hydrasylum Comics on YouTube. Go subscribe if you don't already. But they were doing a show where they talked about, it was a pop-up show. That wasn't a planned show. It wasn't their normal show. And they hopped on and they were talking about comic book hauls that they had gotten from a shop. And as they started talking about, maybe we'll do some talk about Batman or Superman Day, and we'll do some other kind of stuff. And I started thinking about what is comics journalism, because what Jay and Sean were doing, TJ will talk about it later. What Jay and Sean were doing was a form of comics journalism, and I don't think they even thought about it. So I want to talk to you guys about what you think comics journalism looks like in 2025 and in the world of the internet today, and what all that means. And like, how are we differentiating, y'all? What is the, what is the difference? What is the, what do we do? Somebody tell me. This is Kyle and Jay's Q&A. What's up, the internet? I'm producer Kyle. That is Jay, producer Jay from the EXP. Welcome into the show. Today's topic that I just set up 30 seconds ago for anybody who wasn't here is, what is comics journalism? And again, the idea is based on a show that Jay could give some insight into what the show did over on the Hydrasylum page with Sean, where they were talking about their comic book hauls. They had gone to several comic book stores, and they were talking about their hauls, but at the end of the show, they started talking about other stuff, like, what some Superman stuff and maybe other shows they were going to do. And there's been a lot of talk inside the comic book community. By the way, what do you guys think of my new, hold on, Jay, I'm going to do a thing. What do you guys think of the new vaguely Amish beard situation? Interested in your insights. Just throwing that out there. Roast me, the internet. But no, that Jay and Sean were talking about kind of their plans for Superman Day and some of their future content. And there's been a lot of talk inside the circles that I run in about what is comic book journalism anymore. Because there are comic book news sites that inside baseball players like myself and other professionals rely on. There are great sites for you, the fans, that maybe you don't know about. And then there are sites that are widely known that are the equivalent to Comic Book National Enquirer. Mm. And so my question becomes, what is... Sorry, I just got an email. Mr. Nope, no. I don't need one. I have a motorized carriage. Thank you. Anyway. Interesting. Very interesting. I just got an interesting proposition in another message that just totally took me out. So again, what is comic journalism, and what do y'all think comic journalism is? And Ship, it is live. We're always live on the experience. Don't be that guy. But the question becomes, what is comics journalism? And has comics journalism taken a different form in the modern era from what it used to be? So, Jay, tell us a little bit about the show you guys did on what night was that? Was that Monday? Sunday night.
Yeah. So Sunday is usually Jenna and I's date day, but Sean happened to be off too. And they really wanted to take me to a comic book shop called Dragon's Lair. The two of them went there when I was working. They were like, okay, we want to take you there next chance we get. So we went. And to be fair to most comic shops, I am more a trade guy. I'll get a single issue or two, but I'm mainly a trade person. Or sometimes I'll rummage through the back issues, which is what I did not do at the store. This particular place was massive. It was great. It had its own cafe in it, all that stuff. Excellent selection for folks that collect single issues. Trade section for me was only like one shelf, double-sided shelf. So while it wasn't bad or anything, not knocking the place at all, for a trade person, maybe not the best place to go. But there were some cool covers that we saw there. Sean ended up sniping an oversized Alien book from Jenna because Jenna looked at it. She goes, I don't know. And Sean's like, well, if you're not getting it, I'm getting it. So, they were kind of bummed out that I didn't find anything there. I was kind of looking for some Superman stuff, some Superman trades. So they were like, well, it's Sunday. And a lot of comic places aren't open on Sunday, but in our areas, we got at least 2, maybe 3. So then we went to The Adventure Begins. Now, for me, The Adventure Begins had a much better selection of trades and singles. And I ended up picking up Superman 233, the foil edition, which Kyle corrected me, it was a Neil Adams cover. It's the very famous one with Superman breaking the kryptonite chains. Love that cover. It's always been a favorite of mine. I picked up Peacemaker Tries Hard, and there was some awesome oversized stuff. Like, it's not just the Batman, the Hush one that came oversized. They redid quite a few of them in that oversized format. So Sean, when we get home, he's like, hey, you want to do a haul video? And I was thinking about it, and at first I was like, yeah, we can shoot a video real quick. I can edit it, throw it up. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't we just hop on and do it live? Granted, we weren't expecting to go for the hour and 20 minutes we went, but that always happens with us because after we get done with comics, we just start talking. So then we were talking about, how excited we are for Superman Day and what we're going to be doing for Superman Day and things like that. And again, Superman Day is every day for me. I am a huge, unapologetic Superman fan. So I'm really excited to see what shops are doing. Hopefully, in the time between the FOC show that's at noon my time, Central, and the art show later that night, got some time to run to some comic book shops and pick up some good Superman stuff. So that's basically what led to that. Is we went to shops to search out stuff, and then we just wanted to show off the haul we got. We don't get to do that very often. It's been a while since I've been into a comic shop. Usually my comics come from either Kickstarter or the lovely fans on the experience that gift me stuff. Like today I dropped a video because TJ gave me his giveaway from Comic Collectibles. So, when I think of comic journalism, though, some of it is really, really good. Some of it really is. And then some of it, you have those gotcha headlines, those clickbaity headlines that are like there's a new Deadpool, but they don't say it's a new Deadpool in the comics. It just says sometimes they go as far as to say Ryan Reynolds replaced his Deadpool and things like that. Like, it's very clickbaity. So you got to be careful what places you go to.
Yeah, so the question that I want to ask, right? And this is the question I kind of want us to answer is, do you think that what you do on Hydrosylum when you talk about stuff like that, or when you talk about your read on Reacher. What you guys thought of Reacher. Do you think of that as comics journalism or pop culture journalism, or do you just think it's talking?
Honestly, I just think it's talking. Like, we try to be, as honest as we can be. I've never been a person to where if there's a comic, and I've said this before to people, I will never do a short or a video on a comic that I've never read just because it's a popular comic. Because I don't want to be that person that Hush. I've said it before. I haven't read all of Hush. Going to be honest. So I'm not going to sit there and tell people that I think Hush is the greatest Batman story I've ever read just because it's a story that people like. I'm going to be as honest as I can be. There's plenty of Superman stuff. I'm huge Superman fan. That doesn't mean I've read every single piece of Superman literature that's out there. People amaze me all the time with suggestions. So the thing that I think is, I don't think it's journalism, even though Ship is saying everything is a form of journalism, and you're more than likely right, boss. I just see it as talking about stuff I love in an honest way. And hopefully it's the way I talk about some things I'm passionate about, and my honesty shows through, that it excites other people and they may want to check it out. There are plenty of people that probably never even gave Reacher a thought. And then by hearing, Sean, Nope, Ed, and I talk about it, maybe they got into it. Maybe they decided to watch it. So I always want to make sure to be honest with what I'm talking about. That way, I don't sound like some dude that's, just trying to sell you on something. It's something that I actually enjoy. Like, if I didn't like Reacher, I wouldn't have been on the show doing it. That would have been a Sean, Ed, and Nope thing.
See, but here's the thing, and I want to counteract something Ship said, right? Anything that is documenting an opinion as a form is journalism. It's not. It's editorialism. Your opinion is editorialism. Journalism is fact presentation. And I think that's why there's this question about what is comics journalism, right? Because when you look at, that's journaling, not journalism. And I think that's a distinction that is important to be made. When you look at sites, there are certain sites that are very comics journalism opinion driven, right? And then there are websites that are very much, these are the facts, Jack, and nothing more. Jay and I, and what we do on here, is technically editorializing. Hi, Jenna. You muted her.
I didn't
see.
to.
I can read lips. I can see what's happening. So anyway, no, I think so. Anything is editorial. Like, I think there's a difference between. Hi, Jenna. I think there's a difference between editorializing and journalism, right? Journalism is a presentation of facts, and I try to, when I get on the air, be a journalist first, then editorialize, right? Here is what this thing is. Here is what I think of it. And I'm real bad at that. So when you're looking at a news site, when you're looking at a comic book news site, or listening to us, how do you tell the difference? And you tell me in the chat, like, how do you tell the difference? Jay, I've been singing for entirely too long. And my throat is starting to hurt. Anyway, Jay, how do you tell the difference when you're online and you're looking at sources for stories that you want to cover? What do you look for? What are your what is your, I don't know, your benchmark?
I try to look for the places that don't put too much of their own feeling in something. Like, if you're not a Spider-Man fan to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and you're told to write an article on Ultimate Spider-Man. I look for the ones that they're going to give, here's what the book is about. I mean, you can definitely say something along the lines of the book wasn't for me, or I'm not a Spider-Man fan. That's fine. There's some that do that, but then there's some that write articles off completely, like, oh, well, this sucks because Spider-Man sucks and you shouldn't read this. There are some sites that do that. There are some sites when they're reviewing newer books, I try to stay away from the folks that say something just outright sucks without giving me any kind of reason. Like if you don't think the book is good, you're not going to think the book is good. But it's very hard sometimes to navigate because some articles they don't put their feelings in there, but they're just not good. Like it's a hard thing to explain. Like I don't go to very many news sources for comic books because I never know what speculation, because that's another thing that's hard to look for sometimes or hard to find. Kind of like, when we had Dan doing the news, Dan was a person that there's something about the way he talked about comic book news and news in general that I felt like I could trust what Dan was saying. But that's because knowing Dan, it's harder to do when it's people I don't know. So it's very, you just gotta be careful with what you're reading. Don't run off when you read stuff. Like I try not to do in our videos, at least. If I hear a rumor, I make sure that I say it's a rumor. I don't say anything that's been rumored that hasn't been proven as a fact. And you have some sites that'll say, Miles Teller's coming back as the Maker. Well, that hasn't been confirmed or anything yet, but some sites will run off. Nope, this has been confirmed, but they don't cite any sources. It's just, well, this is what we heard. When you report on what you heard without having any basis of fact, you're kind of spreading misinformation.
Right.
So
there was a article written. There have been several articles written in the last few weeks on several different sites: Comics Beat, ICV2, and there was a podcast done over on Comics Industry Insiders talking about comics journalism. And the interesting thing to me as we kind of approach this question is that comics journalists are writing pieces about what is comics journalism. And I wonder if that's not a little self-serving. And so, again, it brought me to this question is, where do you, as the fan, go for your news as it relates to pop culture, as it relates to movie castings and game releases and comic releases and, what's happening on the inside of the industry? My friend Adam Freeman from Prana Direct Market Solutions I'm looking for a story here while I'm talking. That's why I'm kind of looking off to the side and scrolling. Did a bunch of panels at C2E2 this past weekend about the inside of the comic book business, about data, and about some of the stuff that we've talked about on this show, and I've tried to have us talk about here on the EXP. And the number of professionals that showed up was not high, but the number of everyday people, you guys over in the chat, that showed up was. I'm not trying to hide it, Ship. That's why I told everybody what I'm doing. I'm looking for this article. Problem is, this website is kind of prolific, and there's a lot of articles to scroll past to try to find it. Anyway, but you guys showed up because I think there is a thirst amongst fans for actual, real information, for non-editorialized information. One of my favorite sites for comic book news is The Beat, comicsbeat.com. because I think Heidi is one of the better people at keeping their opinions out of the news. But the way Heidi writes is very much the way we talk when Jay and I get on the internet, right? When Nick and I get on a show, when whoever, and I can only talk about shows that I'm on, really, but on shows that we make here on The Experience, right? It's very much they talk Heidi talks in a very colloquial manner. Whereas over on ICV2, they talk way more in a newsprint kind of style, where it almost feels like reading a newspaper. And the question becomes, are you guys actually interested in the news of the industry, or are you interested in the editorializing, or in the speculation, or in the having a conversation like you would have in a comic shop? And so if I just want to ask you guys in the chat, and again, people respond to me on this. What up, Triple B? Would you rather have a conversation that is not necessarily entirely factually based, but is just a bunch of people talking about a comic book story? Or would you rather have someone who knows it all, or who knows what's going on, explain it to you? What up, Castle?
Yeah, that's a tough question though, because don't get me wrong, speculation can be fun sometimes, but fun as in speculating like who's going to show up in the Superman movie, but not being a person that's like, no, this person is 100%, even though I have no proof, showing up in this movie, or the Thunderbolts is going to kill off Taskmaster in the first 5 minutes. Have no proof, but speculation can be fun as long as it's not misconstrued, I think. If your speculation isn't passed off as fact.
And again, there's nothing wrong with one or the other. Right? Like, there is no, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. That is not where this is headed. I honestly want to know. And part of this, and several people in the chat are involved in this, we're developing a new show here, and this is kind of what this show is going to be. Right? Castle wants both. Is that too much to ask for? No, absolutely not. Triple B is more give me the whole story. I'm more of a give them a whole, yeah. This question of, Leonard, there's a fine line between journalism and fan fiction. True, bro. The big example of this that I could think of is the story that Henry Cavill was coming back as Superman. That was a press release that was made that said Henry Cavill will be appearing as Superman in something. We didn't know that it was stupid Black Adam, or not Black Adam. What was it? Was it Black Adam? Black Adam. Yeah. I don't know. The Rock plays not Superman. Anyway, we didn't know that it was that, so everybody just assumed he was going to keep playing Superman in the whole DCEU thing. And then when he wasn't, there were a lot of people out there that were big pissed about it. Hi, Han. Anyway, so there were a lot of people who were big pissed about it because the speculation had taken over the actual news. The actual news was that somebody said, oh, hey, this guy's going to be back doing something. And the whole world read, he's going to be back playing Superman. Well, no. He's going to be back as Superman in the DCU. No, he's got a cameo in one movie.
Well, I don't think that was helped by the fact that he released a video himself saying that he was back and that he can't wait to, for everybody to see what they're doing. And again, that was handshaking. He's a weirdo. Again, I was one of those people. Now, I wasn't mad at James Gunn or anything like that. What I was mad about was I thought I was going to be getting a Henry Cavill, James Gunn directed Superman movie. And yes, the more I thought about it, I was like, well, I don't think that he would fit in what James Gunn was trying to do. So again, I got over it. I was mad for maybe a couple of days, but I was just mad because I was a fan of his. I thought we were getting him back. That's what the speculation was.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of fell for it without getting a official Warner Brothers or whoever was in charge of Warner Bros. At the time releasing anything saying, "Oh yeah, this is true." So, and yes, Castle, the Matt Reeves thing that.
Mm-hmm. So Ed is like, I like seeing other folks' opinions. I don't need someone to tell me what I can look up myself. That being said, I want folks to know it's opinion and not fact, if that makes sense. It
Yes.
does make sense, Ed. And so does it help you when you come across an article, or you come across a video, or you come across a piece of comics journalism where it says, this is what has happened, and then a little bit later it says, this is what I think that means, which is something that Dan did really well, where he would tell you exactly what had happened, and then he would say, this is what I think that means. Real quick, Triple B, it wasn't. I can tell you what actually happened, but that's not maybe a full conversation for this show. Anyway, by the way, I know the head writer on the Witcher now, so I know exactly what happened because they told me. So again, it's if somebody says to you, this is what's happened, and this is what I think it means, does that matter as much as just a compelling argument or a compelling story with a compelling headline? Or does it matter more in terms of what you click on? Ship, the answer to where is Dan is that Dan had his responsibilities at Dynamite and Dynamic Forces changed. And Dan had to spend more time doing that. So at the same time, we were doing some restructuring here. And so that is why Dan and JD are no longer with us. They're not no longer with us. They're just in other roles. JD is he is our standby for Jay and I. If neither of us are here, neither of us can be here. JD is here. And Dan is still helping with some of the back end stuff here on the EXP. But because of his new expanded role at Dynamite, he doesn't have time to be on the air and doing as much as he was.
But Ship, you can always catch Dan on his YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. On Pop Go the Writers,
Yes.
which I may be becoming a more regular part of, as it turns out.
Nice.
Yeah, he and I have been having conversations. Real quick, I want to take a break. I want to take a minute out of the show and talk about. I just want to mention this. If you guys have ever seen these at the store, this is the Nido stress ball. This thing is amazing, and it is super helpful when you're stressed out or you're doing a live show and you need something to do with your hands. So, anyway, K or NEEDOH. Anyway, so there is and we're going to talk about this for another couple of minutes. There is a growing trend that I want to get your opinion on, Jay, and the chat. That I want to ask about, and that is, again, the running away from what for the last 10 to 15 years have been the places for comic book news. No, these are available everywhere, guys. These are, anyway. But again, it helps with stress. It helps with anxiety. I have one in the car for when I'm stuck in traffic and like I want to murder people. I just squeeze the crap out of this. Anyway, but to trend away from websites, social media, and that kind of stuff, and trend more towards letters in the backs of comic books and print material. There are several and a place called Substack. I will throw Substack under there. That are also super helpful, right? Where you're hearing directly from the creatives.
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing directly from the writers or the artists. And then at the same time, things like Zdarsky Comic News. Or there are a couple of other like almost comic book newspapers that are being published as zines right now. Do you guys think that we're seeing a resurgence in some of that old school media to help with kind of combating the fact that the internet has become a wasteland for knowledge?
I love that. I love Substack because for me, I know these are people's jobs, but for me, it kind of cuts out the middleman, so it doesn't feel like you're playing telephone. Uh, you don't have to worry about an artist or creator being misquoted or something that they say gets taken out of context by sites that are reporting it. I've seen that quite a few times, especially with what's going on now with the new DC universe coming up. There's been a lot of times Gunn's been misquoted and people have taken things that he said out of context. So Substack, I subscribe to a bunch of Substacks, and they're not all, you don't have to pay for them. There are pay things for them, but you can also get them for free. So that's a good way to support and hear from creators that you're interested in or that you're a fan of. If they have a Substack, search them out. There's even some folks that on Patreon have free Patreon to where you're hearing directly from them. And the Zdarsky zine thing, I thought when y'all first told me about it, that was genius. That's a genius thing.
Has anybody in the chat read Zdarsky Comic News, picked up a copy from your LCS? Let me know if you have. There's a new one out today with an interview with Joe Kelly. I just put 2 links in the chat, guys. Those are the links to the 2 articles, one from The Beat and one from ICV2, that are kind of talking about comics journalism. What up, Lorena? And kind of what we feel is sort of the death of the comics journalism we knew. I wanted to kind of pivot the idea of, is there an idea is there an idea in the chat of what we should define as comics journalism? So again, has anybody read Zdarsky Comic News? And then again, guys, as we go forward, what do y'all think we should do? What do y'all think it should look like? I just got the headline, Jay. Michelle Trachtenberg died a natural death of complications from diabetes.
Wow.
There you go. Have you read one, Castle? I'm trying to, on some level, before we pivot to lighter conversation, which I want to have, I wanted to ask people kind of what they thought of, what direction things should be going. What would you like to see happen in comics journalism going forward? Do you have any thoughts, Jay?
I don't know. For me, really, it's just I'd like more honesty and unbiasedness in things. Again, and I keep harping it up, and I hate using it, but for right now, this is the best argument I can make. Is the sites that write about the DCEU. You can definitely tell they didn't like it, and that's fine. I've said it before. It wasn't for everyone. I personally liked it. But if you're going to write an article about something, try to not be so biased. If I don't know, there's just something about it, and it's on both sides of the scale. Like I don't want to read somebody who doesn't like the DCU, even though nothing's really come of it yet, and they're writing about how all the things that Gunn's doing wrong. Like I don't want to hear stuff like that. Give me something unbiased. Give me your unbiased opinion, or just give me the news about it. Just tell me what's going on. Don't tell me, well, this person did it better than this person. Well, that's not the conversation anymore because that person's not there anymore. I think that's what I want. I want unbiased stuff.
All right. What about anybody in the chat? Somebody throw some stuff out there. And then I want to pivot to talk about Superman Day. Slanted journalism is so annoying and it thrives on social media. It does.
I'd like for us to one day get to the point where it's not negativity that gets the clicks. I want it to be like, you don't have to be toxically positive about things, but I'd like for there to be a person who's positive should have more of a following than someone who's negative, in my view. And I don't know why. I don't get it. I don't get why anybody would want to watch videos of people trashing things unless it's some kind of morbid curiosity kind of thing. Like, it's just here on The Experience, we try to be as positive about things as we can. No, we don't like everything, but
I don't like anything. But
well, yeah, well, but we're not ripping up comics or telling people that they should like live in a garbage can because that's all they are is garbage. Like we're not like that. But it's just, I don't know. It's so disheartening to see all these negative people are the ones that have the view count. They have the numbers. They have the following. And people who try to be honest and try to be positive about things are just kind of left in the dust. I'm hoping one day we get some kind of a flip-flop here. And that's not what it is anymore. That positivity gets the clicks. Because I've said it before and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I don't care if the Hydrosylum channel ever gets any more subs. We are never going to become a clickbait, negative, tear things down channel. And if being positive keeps us where we're at right now, then that's just where we're going to stay. So that's my thoughts on that. I wish we had more positivity.
Castle says, I'm tired of how communication between people has gotten to. Just because I like something you don't doesn't mean we can't have great conversation about it and not yell at each other. I believe yelling is a very important part of communication. But only because in my family, if you don't yell, you can't get a word in edgewise. Lyle's not wrong. I mean, anybody who's ever been to Moose Jaw knows it's hard to be positive when you have seasons because they don't there. I like did you know or did you hear approach. And opinion is fine, but too much negativity makes me want to watch less. I feel like a lot of channels ride waves of controversy. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, all right. I've gotten some good opinions, and we're gonna keep talking about that. On the internet, everyone has opinions, however, not necessarily the wisdom to express it. It's true. Being positive is what I like. Got it. We are going to have more conversations like this in the future, but I wanted to start by having this conversation. Then I want to pivot to some lighter things. Guys, if you didn't, I don't think this has been officially announced, and I'm not officially announcing it either. But it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that Redcoat number 11, which came out today, is going to sell out. So if you haven't picked up your copy of Redcoat number 11, maybe you ought to. Just throwing that out there because I know there's some of you here that are my Ghost Machinies. So
Yeah. Yeah, we know, Lyle.
It's true. So Jay, I know I had talked to you about it, and I don't know where you guys came down, but doing some Superman Day coverage. What are your plans for Superman Day?
Well, we are going to get in between because I'm running the FOC show for you Friday. That's at noon Central, and that usually 2 hours, that show. Okay. And then of course we're gonna have the art show at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. So I'm gonna have like about a 3-hour gap in there. So what we're gonna try to do, Sean and I, because Sean is also off, is get to as many of the comic shops as we can hit, and find their comic stuff. All the Superman stuff we can find. I know I definitely want to. I know it's already out, but I definitely want to pick up the Summer Superman special because this is something I'm very excited for. I know Dan Slott is kind of polarizing for some people with Spider-Man, but I'm always excited when somebody who's never written Superman jumps in the game to write him. So I'm very excited to see what Dan not only writes for his story in the Summer Superman special, but I'm really excited for his Superman Unlimited series that he's going to be doing. So,
yeah. Are you going to? I know we had talked about you guys maybe doing a special on here or doing something over on Hydrosylum. What have you guys made a plan for that?
I think we might be doing a little something. Maybe a little something. A little something on Friday.
Yeah.
In place of Nancy and Friday Night Live, since they're taking off for Good Friday.
Well, that should be fun. Lorena, Superman Day is Friday. Yes, the new guys. Yes, the new character in Ghost, or the new Ghost Machine character from Redcoat is the Northerner. I will say this: if you haven't read it yet, Redcoat 11 is a masterclass in long-term storytelling. The Northerner has been showing up across the Unnamed Universe, but we haven't known that it's him until just like we haven't really known who it is or what it was, and now we're kind of starting to get some of that story. And I know Jeff has a long tail for that, so look out for that. So Jay, you're going to be here Friday night doing that. Guys, we had, Jay and I have been doing some live sales again. We're going to take Sunday off for Easter because, just because Jesus had to work that day doesn't mean we do. So we're going to take it off. But Monday night, Jay and I have started doing another thing. It's called Second Shift Lunch. It's over on Comic Book Shopping Network, which is a group on Facebook. If you head over to Facebook and search Comic Book Shopping Network, you can join the group, answer the questions so I can let you in. And you can see Jay and I selling some comics on Monday nights, doing that on Second Shift Lunch, which is a thing we do in the break on Mondays between shows. Yep. So, it's a fun time. And it's not going to be super serious. We're going to have some fun with it. We're going to do some goofy things. I'm planning some real goofy things, including we're going to call it the Mr. Nope special or the Bankrupt Mr. Nope show, which is an entire Turtles episode where I bring in some of my best Turtle stuff and offer it to you guys at a discount, if I'm going to be real honest, just to have some fun talking Turtles. I may even have a guest on that show that is very, very, very familiar with the Turtles.
Ooh. Ooh. And y'all know Kyle knows people. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. If I can make it work, I'm gonna. And during that show, I will probably be able to offer that person signing books. So, I will let you know. Nope. I kind of need to schedule it around my hopeful guest's schedule. But it will be before the end of May because the private signing with him is at the end of May. All right. We've got, normally we do this show for 2 hours. I'm exhausted and I have other stuff I need to get done. And Jay could probably use a break. But I thought what we should do for the last 15 or so minutes of the show is open it up to you guys. And again, ask us anything. Ask us questions. Be cool about it. Don't ask us anything weird.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
Yep. But feel free to ask us any questions you have about the experience, about, comic books, about pop culture, about anything, and we will do our best to answer them.
Well, thank you, Lyle, for being here, and everybody else.
You, Lyle. Friday's Order Up guest, Friday the guest on Order Up, is Michael Walsh, who is the artist on the forthcoming Exquisite Corpses from Tiny Onion. With James Tynion, that's coming out from Image, but you guys may know him as the artist and really the driver of the car on Silver Coin, which was a great anthology series that he was kind of the driving force behind. So he will be the guest on Monday or on Friday, and then a week from Friday, I'll be back. Matthias and I are doing something very out of the ordinary. We are going to do a different version of the FOC show. Which is to say, we will have 2 interviews that day. One of them will be the folks behind Recca Publishing, which again is somebody that you're going to be hearing a lot about from us as we sort of start to partner with them a little bit. And then we will also have Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly from the forthcoming Uncanny X-Men book will be joining us as well that day. So that will be different. Okay. Castle, how did you guys get into comics?
Oh, God.
Jay, you go first.
Oh, yeah, I'll go first. So, again, everybody knows it. Everybody's gonna. This is gonna be burned into y'all's brain. Superman. Superman is my favorite character. Always has been. Always will be. When I was 3 or 4, I think, I was shown the Superman movie, Superman 78, Christopher Reeve, and was just completely enamored with it. Just after that, it was towels tied around my neck, running around, jumping off of furniture, while singing the Dukes of Hazzard theme song because I love Dukes of Hazzard as a little kid too. But when I got a little bit older, maybe 4 or 5, I had cousins who had comic books, and that's kind of also how I learned to read. Like, I learned to read at school and with the help of comic books. And once I learned that Superman was a comic book character as well, and I didn't just have to watch the movie, I could read his adventures. I was hooked ever since then. Now, I've had comic books that were usually given to me by friends, and they've been lost through the years of moving. It wasn't really until Jenna, when I had somebody else that shared the love of comics with me, that I really, really, really got into collecting. Like, I had some of my collection, but between Jenna and I, the collection for us has really blown up. And I don't know, there's something about stories, and it's not just Superman, obviously, but there's something about comics that just, as someone who has talked about it before, I'm extremely socially anxiety, very much so. There's something about comics that calms me, calms my brain. My brain moves like a billion miles a minute, but my body does not move that fast. There's something about comics that's just calming to me. So I've been reading them for, almost 40 years now. And I don't know. It's just that thing that no matter what I like outside of comics, usually there's a comic for it. Like we talked about my love of Gears of War, there's Gears of War comics. I love horror movies, there are horror comics. There's a horror comic for people, or not a horror comic. There are comics for people that aren't just superheroes. So it's just one of those things where love at first sight. Soon as I started reading, I couldn't stop. So, but it all started with Superman 78.
For me, the answer is ain't nothing but a family thing. The day my dad was born, my grandfather walked to the newsstand of the hospital and bought everything that came out that day. Like newspapers, magazines, and one of them was this little book called Amazing Spider-Man. The rest is kind of history. When I personally started collecting, when I was young, I was into sports cards and sports memorabilia, and we had a sports card store, but a shop opened nearby to my house called Great Eastern Comics that sold sports cards, but they sold comic books. They sold Magic the Gathering, and they had Dungeons and Dragons. The first place I could ride my bike to on my own when I could cross the street was a place called the Big Apple Deli. If you look at me now, you could see the evidence of a little kid with the money in his pocket going to a deli a couple of times a week. The second place I could ride my bike to was Great Eastern Comics. And so in that shop, I was taught Dungeons and Dragons. I bought my first set of polyhedral die. Every day when I drive to the office, I drive by the location of where that store was. Like, I bought my first comic with my own money, a Dazzler #1, John Romita Jr. art, in that shop. First comic I ever bought with my own money. I bought my first pack of Magic the Gathering beta. Like, the set was beta in 1993 in Great Eastern Comics. So there has very seldom been a point in my life where I wasn't buying, reading, or collecting comics. I had been in the music business and in the radio industry for a while. I started going to a shop called Sean's Anime and Comics here in town because the shop I had gone to my whole life decided it didn't want to order my Doctor Who import crap that I wanted. I wanted the import covers of the magazines. I wanted the toys. I wanted all this stuff. They didn't want to order it. I knew it was available through Diamond. They just didn't want a deal. So I went to this new little shop, and the guy was great to me. And pretty soon I started working there on weekends to pay for my pulls. And then when my job ended at the radio station, I bought the store. Before that I worked in radio and television and all that kind of stuff. So like I had this big long career in broadcasting but I loved comic books the whole time. So I bought a comic book shop. And then this thing called live streaming happened. And I took what I knew from radio and television and started putting it to work selling comics on the internet. And that actually is kind of the answer to the question, why did you guys choose to go on YouTube? How did you start the channel? I lost my store at the beginning of COVID. I had made a real estate decision in 2019 that by the March of 2020, I realized was a very bad real estate decision because it was either spend an enormous amount of money, take out a big loan, pay an enormous amount of money, or close at the start of a global pandemic. So I decided to close. I was working. I really want to say I was working part-time at a Five and Dive, and my boss was Mr. McGee, which is a reference that some of you will get. I was, working part-time at a nasal decongestant factory, which is a Weird Al reference. But I was actually working in a 3-ring binder factory doing silk screening and riveting binder metal into 3-ring binders. One of my jobs, and Jen was always freaked out by it, was I had to run a pneumatic cutter, which was 2 tons of pressure on a giant razor blade cutting the board that goes into 3-ring binders. Super fun job. I loved that job. I would go back to that job if we stopped doing this because I really did enjoy it. It was like problem solving every day, but like I was out of comics for a minute and I got a call from Jen. Hey, thinking about doing a thing. Can you come to a meeting? Yeah, sure. And I showed up to a meeting where the idea of the experience was floated at first. And the experience was just originally, from my remembering, going to exist on Facebook. At the time, Facebook was the driving force for a lot of comic live selling. Whatnot didn't exist. There were 2 people doing it on YouTube with no success. Very few people doing it on Twitch. You couldn't stream live to Instagram yet. Like a lot of this stuff didn't exist. And went through a couple meetings with another guy who was going to be the executive producer. That guy didn't work out, and we thought the thing was dead in the water, and I asked everybody for 24 hours. And in 24 hours, I wrote the pitch for what the experience would be. And my premise was that YouTube was the future. There was that by basically this time, there would be no money in Facebook. There would be very little money in Twitch, both of which are true. And that YouTube was the future of this thing. And that building it toward a fast network was the way to go. Making as much content as you can afford to make, quality content for cheap, and being able to syndicate. We're not there yet, but that was always the goal. So why do we choose YouTube? Because I could see the writing on the wall that Facebook was oversaturated and that none of the other platforms were going to be able to keep up with YouTube. So that's why we chose YouTube, and that's how we got here. I was a broadcaster who kind of had an opportunity and took it. Now we are, again, we are our own little corner of the industry. We are our own little corner of comics. There is some very interesting stuff that is happening for us that I can't wait to tell you all about. One of which is an ongoing partnership with Ghost Machine. I mean, we talked about Ghost Machine earlier, but like Jeff Johns loved coming on and talking to y'all. Like, dude was excited. He wants to come back a bunch. Jason Fabok wants to come here. Pete Tomasi. Some of these guys want to come and hang out with y'all. And so we have a lot of very exciting things that we're working on, and I'm working every day at trying to bring new cool stuff for y'all. I'm developing new content. Some of you know about it, some of you don't. We're developing a few new pieces of content. So the experience is kind of the line I gave Jen and Nick when we started this thing was that the road doesn't go where we need it to go. It just doesn't. Nobody else was doing it. Nobody else had tread the path before us. So that we needed to spend a bunch of time cutting down the trees. And that's what we've been doing. And you guys have been a big part of that. So, in a big way, the community of the experience exists because of y'all. Just Jen, Nick, and I guess, were prescient enough in the middle of a pandemic to say, okay, let's go this direction. And if it means we have to go slow, if it means we have to be very deliberate, if it means we're going to make some mistakes and fail in a couple of ways, we will. And then we'll recollect and move a different direction slightly and go that way and turn it into what we want it to be. There are still, in my opinion, big pieces of content that the experience needs that it does not have, but we're working on it. So eventually. Was that the answer to your question, fellas?
I always love hearing these stories.
You want to hear the story about the time I slammed my my pinky finger in a rivet press? Which is when I knew I needed to get out of that factory, even though I loved it.
Jeez, because I remember going back and watching older episodes of Experience stuff and how it used to be one continuous stream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's look where it is now. Look where it is now. It's amazing. The thing has evolved. We have all the shows feel like they're up. Like they're all starting to get to the point where the rooms are full of people. We got people that used to be just comic collectible folks coming on to, you know, Friday Night Live with Nancy, or they're coming over to Minute to Skim It, and the community. It doesn't just stick with one show now. It feels like a community that just, hey, if I got the time to watch this thing that the Experience is doing, I'm, even if I don't buy anything, I'm gonna stop in and say hi and just talk. And the people in the chat have become friends. I've become friends with folks in the chat.
By the way, if y'all add me and I don't add you back, it's just because I don't do that very well. No, not even that. I'm just real bad at social media.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, Lyle. It does.
Mm-hmm.
And, again.
Well, you guys know we went and pulled Jay out of a freezer at a Kroger, right? Like,
yeah.
Jay had been working the same retail job since he was 18. I'm like, hey, man, do you want to come edit some videos?
Yeah.
And then it was boom.
Yeah. And I was doing that for a while. And, I told the story before. I'll tell it again real quick. There's people that used to be like, Jay, you're always so happy. Like whenever you're on here, you're always smiling. You're always happy. And there's a couple reasons because of that. For one, I never thought that I'd be able to work so close with something that I've loved my entire life. Like when I say I love my job, it's not to get brownie points from anybody. I literally love my job.
He doesn't love his boss. It's okay.
That's bull, and you know that. I love everybody here. There's not one person on the Experience that I dislike working with. They're all great people. But the other reason that it's so happy is when Kyle asked me to do the editing, right? I told my parents about it. My parents have been wanting me to get out of my job for forever, and my dad was very proud that I was stepping out of my comfort zone to do something else. Now, unfortunately, my dad passed before I was doing the live shows. So part of me whenever I'm on is my parents are proud of me. This is something that, this is something they never understood. My mom still doesn't understand it, but they're proud of me for doing something that I love. And that's the best part of the job. That's the best part of the job. I love being here. I love the people that I've met. I love learning things. You and JD have honestly taught me so much stuff that I take over to the Hydrosylum stuff when I learn something. Like,
dude, you're about to get a crash course in some crazy, so get ready.
Yes.
So real fast, and I will say this about Jay, guys. He came in and it was a lot of, let me tell you how to do this. Let me show you how to do this. And you'd tell him once, maybe twice, and he'd figure it out. So Jay was great. But I will say this for your mom, Jay. I was working for ESPN and my parents didn't understand what I do. They would see me on the sidelines at games and be like, what do you do? Like, so to say they don't understand this would be like trying to explain nuclear fission to a dog. Like, they just do not get it. But they like the fact that I like coming to work. They like the fact that I'm, somewhat successful. They like the fact that I'm not a giant ball of stress all the time, even though I'm a giant ball of stress all the time. So That's good. To answer Castle's question, would you guys work with people who have big channels like Comic Pop or Comic Tropes, like them having a show on the EXP? There is a list of about 10 people I won't work with. If that answers your question, Castle. And only 10.
And I'm blanking on his name, but didn't we have the guy from Comic Pop on with Miss Jen? Am I thinking of somebody else? Because I'm thinking of the guy who did the backstory in Terminator. I thought that was.
Yeah. No, he's from Comic Pop. Yes, he was on with Miss Jen as a creative, but we've never done a show with them. But to answer that question, Castle, the bigger channels, and this is something that I still work with Bronze on almost all the time, and that Robbie has kind of taught us over the years. Those channels have their own branding. They have their own lives. They have their own things. So to come and do something over here has to align with the core values of their own content, right? What Bronze is doing now, what Bronze and I did with Devil's Advocates, that kind of stuff sort of aligned with the content he was doing at the time on his channel. But the bigger the channel, the harder it is to do anything that isn't that channel. Look at our buddy Mint Hunter, right? James had a great channel. James had a great show, but his channel was taking up his own channel was taking up so much of his time. He could no longer really devote the time to the EXP that he needed. So to say, would I work with Comic Pop or Comic Tropes? Probably. But it would have to make sense for us. It would have to make them for it would have to make sense for us. It would have to make sense for them. And again, it would have to be a collaborative effort that paid off both directions. But I will say this, keep your eyes out, man. Like I will never say never, except for that group of 10. And I'll be honest, there are no names on that group of 10 that I will tell anybody, because those channels are good. Those channels are worth watching, but either it doesn't make sense for us or it doesn't make sense for them in such a big way that it'll just never happen. All right. Devil's Advocates was fun. Was it it was your first viewer call-in show? I guess technically, not actually, but technically. Our first viewer call-in show was in the very first iteration of the experience. Probably lasted about 2 months when there was nobody here. And then it went away because, again, we got something better. It was a show but that was a show I was hosting and nobody ever called. So we got something better and we replaced it. And TJ, it's not. But so it got replaced with something better, and then it kind of came back for Hot Takes, and then it was Devil's Advocates, and it may come back around again. There is nothing saying it won't come back around again. Viewer call-in shows are always a good time, but with the current direction we're going, it doesn't really make sense right now. Because again, like this show, we'll just have you on, right? If there's something we want to talk about or you want to talk about, we'll just have you on.
Yeah.
No reason to have you call in. So.
And all I just want to say real quick to Castle. You do great videos, man. Like I just make a thumbnail and stick the 2 logos on there. That's all I do. There's hardly ever any editing for those Castle's Corners. You do a fantastic job, man. It's my pleasure to work on those and help you with those.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Any other questions? Anything else y'all want to talk about? Do you have any topics you'd like to speak about? Yeah, you did, Triple B. I remember that. A lot of good folks called in on that show. Like, super fun times. I want to remind you guys that tomorrow at 7, Miss Jen is here with What's in the Box. Then you have Geek Chat. Then Mel and Mog are back this week with their show. Then on Friday, Jay will be helping Matthias with special guest Michael Walsh from
Oh, that's good. That's good, Lyle. That's good.
this book, Exquisite Corpses, which is on FOC this week. This is the ash can, by the way. James Tinian, Michael Walsh. It's a black and white book. Anyway, they will be here Friday at 1:00 Eastern. And then Nick will be here at 7:00 with the art show. And then Jay and Sean are doing a Superman Day haul / recap / conversation in the Nancy McCann slot at 9:00 Eastern. Next Monday, we will be back with Comic Collectibles and Best Coast Comics. Tuesday will be Mint to Skim It. And Welcome to Wonderland and Cooking It with Henri. Next Wednesday, obviously, will be Comic Collectibles, and Jay and I will be back with another topic. Hopefully, a full topic. Our next sales show will be Monday night, 9 to, we'll call it 10:45-ish on CBSN, TJ. And at least for Jay and I, there are always shows over on CBSN. There are always shows, obviously we have all the shows here. So just check all of those out. And we will see you guys then. If there are no other questions, I have a bunch of business paperwork to write and sleep to get that I haven't gotten in 3 days. And Jay is probably very hungry. He's been on the air for a long time tonight. Castle, ping me. You know how to get a hold of me. That is an ongoing conversation, but ping me and we'll talk about it. Because I think that might be a better you and I having a conversation topic. Hell, give me 20 minutes after we get off of here and you can call me. But we will talk here in the next couple of days, everybody. Be safe. Tune into all the other shows. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Check out all the other shows and go to your comic shop. Buy some stuff. Friday's Batman or Superman Day. They'll probably have sales.
Yes.
We'll see everybody later.